studio will break you. Now, what do I mean by that? If you're a young guy or you're just starting out and you're putting together a band and you've never been in a professional recording studio. Now, I know you don't have to go into a professional recording studio these days to make a recording. But then again, if you're inexperienced and you don't know how to, operate a computer software and know anything about production and know how to produce music, which you may not, especially if you're just a kid starting out, in your first band. You're in for a rude awakening, and you're going to discover any weak spots you have in your band. Now, a band is only as good as its weakest member. And what do I mean by that? Well, if you're playing a gig, and even if you're a professional, and you call a sub, and, it happens a lot in Nashville. You would go down the list, and, you'd have your number 1 call, and your number 2 call, and your number 3 call, and number 4 call, and on and on and on. Nashville is a very busy place where a lot of musicians are in demand. So there have been times where a gig drops on my lap, I book the players, and then the day of the gig, I get a call from, say, the drummer. And he says, "Man, I'm really sorry, but I'm sick, or I'm double booked, or I'm just not going to be able to do your gig." Well, now you've got a very precarious situation because you hope that one of your other top guys is available. But if he's not, I have had to go down the line, call every single person I know that's a competent drummer. And then you start getting lower and lower in your list into people that might be unreliable, or maybe not on the same level, or maybe just a different style that doesn't fit your band. But, at some point you get thankful that you get somebody. But man, I've had times where I've had to call everybody I know. No one is available. It's, say, a holiday weekend or whatever. And then I start asking the guys that I call, "Do you know anybody? Is there anybody that I don't know about?" And they'll start throwing out some names, and you start writing down the things. Now, you've got to qualify these people, because what can end up happening is you get a guy on your gig who has no place being there. And there's 2 ways you can handle that. You can either get ticked off and, thinking that if you blow up, this guy will play better. And let me tell you something, that doesn't work. Your best bet is to just go, okay, this is what we're going to have to deal with tonight. And kind of put it out of your head and just plow through the gig. Just plow through the gig. It's really the only thing you can do. I've tried getting ticked off and angry and come on, man. That doesn't, if they ain't got it, they ain't got it. Now, the same thing applies for somebody in their first band. You're all working together. You all think it sounds great. You're playing in your garage or in your, spare bedroom or whatever it is. And you get the idea, hey, let's make a recording, something we can sell at shows. Let's create a product. Let's create some music. Let's record music so we can put it out. But you're going to find out when you all go in together to record, and maybe you find a producer, and maybe you find somebody locally who says, "Hey man, I'll record you guys. Let's get you ready for the studio." You're going to find out when you get in there who is your weakest link. And you might think that you're the strongest link, but you just never know when you get in the studio, because it's a lot easier now than it was. Getting a good guitar sound is pretty easy now with all the technology you have and the knowledge that people have. But man, even I have been in situations where I get in a studio and the room is very dry sounding, and it's back before modeling and all of this stuff, and all I had was a Marshall head and a 412 cab. That's all I owned. And you go in there and you crank it up and they mic it, and then you hear it in the control room, and you're like, that's not what I want my guitar to sound like. And I remember just sitting there, and he's like, well, what do you want it to sound like? And I'm like, I want it to sound like Van Halen 1. And the guy's like, well, you're gonna have to find the guy that mods, get a Jose mod and dye your amp in and all that. And now here you are in the studio, and it's like, you're gonna have to just make it work with what you got. But nowadays, with modern technology, getting a sound is not so much the problem. But the reality is, if somebody in your band has timing issues, or your drummer is not consistent and can't play to a click, or your singer can't sing in pitch. Now, I realize nowadays everything can be fixed, but it costs money to fix things. If the guy says, look, man, your bass player's timing is so bad, I'm gonna have to spend an hour, on this one song, fixing the issues with the bass. Or your singer is all over the place, and I'm gonna have to spend 2 hours tuning this thing. Or your drummer's timing is so off that I'm gonna have to, each stem, I'm gonna have to, time adjust. Now, back in the days before all this digital editing, man, you had a serious problem on your hands, because these things couldn't have been fixed. And I have seen bands come to blows. I have seen bands break up. I've seen members, getting ticked off and storming off. And I've been in situations where I've been called to come in and add supplemental guitars, because the guitar tones and things that are on, the guitar player put down, just weren't enough. Hey, can you come in and add some guitars to these tracks? It needs it. And, sometimes when I was brought in, the guitar player is a guy that's, he's a good guitar player around town. But when he went to do this, when he was a kid, when he was 18, 19 years old, and maybe he joined a band that stylistically he really isn't. There was an incident where the guitar player was a talented kid, but his ears were, more into Latin and jazz, and from that school. But he's in his, high school metal band, and he's got no experience getting those kind of tones and, playing that style of music. So I was called to, hey, come in here and let's add some supplemental guitars to what he did, and flesh out the sound a little bit. And so I went in and, okay, your song goes like this. Okay. Okay. And there's a little lead part. I'll just add a little delay. Just the little simple things that we do, as professional guitar players. But I have seen, like, there was a band that I was in when I first got to Nashville, and the band was being courted by a pretty well-known producer at the time, and we were recording in a really nice studio, one of the premier studios in Nashville. And, there was some potential there. People were noticing this singer. It had a real powerful singer, and His partner was his buddy was the songwriter, and they put together a band, and I was in the band, and we go into the studio. And I don't know exactly what happened, but all of a sudden the songwriter and the singer just came to blows. It was literally like two guys just, and they had to be separated and all this. And it just, here we are in our first professional recording studio. The producer is thinking about, doing something with us, shopping us around town. There's all this potential opportunity on the books. And I don't know if it was he felt the production wasn't featuring his voice enough, or he didn't like, something or whatever. And he argued with the songwriter, who was kind of going, hey, I like where this is going. I like what the band's playing. And those guys came to blows. Now, that was pretty much the breakup of the band. I experienced it firsthand, and I can remember, at that point, everybody started, turning on the singer. And he was a big guy. He was a big, strong guy. And he started threatening people in the group. And so I got on the horn with him, and I said, look, man, I know you're a big guy, and you spend a lot of time in the gym. But, if you do anything to these people, you're going to have to deal with me. And I said, you might kick my you-know-what, but I'm going to make sure you get hurt in the process. I'm going to make sure you feel pain. And, that kind of, then it kind of turned on me like, oh, well, why are you, but I'm like, look, man, he is threatening everybody. He's fighting with everyone. And many, many decades later, the guy tries to reunite the band. And he calls me up like a week before my wedding, wanting me to fly out, to do some reunion show. And he's insulting me by saying, well, I'll provide a place for you to stay, and I'll feed you. And I'm like, are you kidding? I said, dude, I'm getting married. I'm not flying to New York. I'm not going to do your little reunion show. I'm sorry. And he started calling me names, and I started, going at it with my wife. My future wife was like, oh my God, I've never heard you like that. I said, yeah, I hope you never do have to hear me like that, because, I know how to bark just like everybody else. And this guy, was barking at me and insulting me. And first of all, man, calling me and wanting me to come to New York and saying, I'll get a hotel room and he'll feed me. That's not going to work, bro. I don't care who you are. I'm not coming up there and playing for free for meal. Oh, I'll get to go to New York. Oh, wow. Dude, been to New York. I played all over that state. I've played in New York City. I've played in New York City with DMC on stage. Google that, but, this is something that, progressed over the years, and it all stemmed from a studio session where weaknesses or perceptions got skewed and a fight breaks out. But I have seen bands literally break up, and because here's the thing, is as the producer, and I've been in this slot where I'm the producer, and you have to go, hey man, your guitar tone is not happening. I know you want to use your such and such amp, but listen to this. It sounds like what. And, unfortunately, you don't have time for kid gloves in the studio. The clock is ticking. You're trying to get these guys a good demo, or you're trying to get them signed, or whatever you're trying to do. And you have to just tell them, man, dude, this is not happening. We need to get you a different rig in here. We need to try something else. And sometimes people can get really upset about that. This is my sound, man. Some people will refuse to try anything else. And it's your job as the producer to try things, to try to get the band sounding as good as they can. Or maybe, your bass player is, a guy that shows up late, and when it comes time to the studio, he's got insecurities, and maybe he just, flakes on the thing. I've seen it happen where guys know that the hammer is about to be dropped, and they literally just cancel and pull up ship right before the studio. It's happened to me. Had a singer out in Los Angeles. We're getting ready to go into the studio. We're all excited. Everything's in order. And the singer decides, I want to record my songs. And we listen to the song. Dude, no, we've got the songs already mapped out. And he goes, I'm out. And just blows up the whole thing. One of the most toughest challenges you can get through is your first studio session with your band. If you can survive that, come out with a quality product, you're on your way. You're on your way to getting your music out there and shopping it and doing, selling it at gigs and all those things. But man, getting through your first recording session is extremely hard. Now, I'm going to have to do a video about this, how to prepare for this. Because if you go in there and you're not prepared, then it could break up your band.